Thanks so much for joining us for this session where we'll be talking about tools in your emergency remote instruction toolbox. I did want to point out and stress that what we're talking about is remote instruction and kind of differentiating that between online learning. So a lot of times with online learning, we have lots of time to plan ahead and really structure the class for online delivery. But in this case, we're doing remote instruction. We are making revisions to your courses based on circumstances beyond our control. So it is a different approach, and I did want to point that out because it does kind of direct the information that I'm going to share with you. So just a little bit about this presentation before we get started. This isn't tool training, so what it is intended to do is to make you aware of the tools that are available, excuse me, so that you can make some good choices. But if you do want tool training, please let me know, and I would be happy to organize that for you. So I also, just before we get into it, wanted to share this information about choosing technology. This comes from an article from the Chronicle of Higher Education, and I thought these were three really good questions to ask as you get started. The first being, what is the technology itself intended for? Because a lot of times that is going to help determine if this is the right tool for what you're trying to do. The next is, what are your learning objectives or outcomes? And making sure that we keep those in sight as we are finding and adapting technology. And the last, which may seem like it's not related, but what are the hardest, most difficult concepts that you're teaching? Because we need to think about how does this technology either enhance or further complicate what you're trying to teach. So that's a big one. It's a really good question to ask, I think. So the first section that I'm going to talk about is the class lectures. So basically what I mean is if you have been teaching class lectures face-to-face, I'm going to give you a couple of online alternatives for that. So the first is the best synchronous option. So if you would still like to hold synchronous classes and I would recommend using a web conferencing tool. So the tool that we recommend is the Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. That tool is integrated into Blackboard. And so the nice thing about that is that you basically, once you start your Collaborate session, you don't have to do anything else. You can hit record in the Collaborate session, and then the recordings will automatically be made available to the students once they have rendered. The thing to keep in mind though is that the Collaborate tool is cloud hosted, so those recordings may not be immediately available. So that's a big thing. I think a lot of folks will expect it to be there as soon as the class session is over, and they're just not. But the advantages of the web conferencing tool is that you have this live class interaction. Your students can ask questions, you can have conversations. It's just a nice way to stay in touch with your students. You can do the file sharing, so it's perfect for PowerPoints and sharing images and other graphic elements. Excuse me. It also has a whiteboard tool, so you can draw and write information down and make diagrams. You can also do breakout groups, so you have the larger group, and then if you wanted to mimic a think, share, pair type of exercise, you could absolutely do that with the breakout groups. And you also have polling, so if you use Top Hat or something like that, it would kind of be equivalent to that, only it's not as sophisticated as some of the Top Hat things. Like you can't have it, integrate with the grade center, the way that they're answering those polls. It's really just for interaction right there in the class.
Kind of late. Okay, so you can record the sessions, and then the recordings are going to automatically show up in Blackboard, and you don't have to do any extra steps. Whereas if you use another one of these web conferencing tools, it may not be as easy to share the recordings with the students after the fact. So that's one reason, one advantage that Collaborate has. Plus, all of your students are automatically invited into it because they're right there in your classroom, and so you don't have to worry about people not being able to access it. So those would be some of the advantages. Just a little bit more on Collaborate, there is a mobile app. So if you have students that maybe have limited access to a computer, they can still connect to the Collaborate session from the phone. And yes, like there's the option to record. However, do keep in mind, so with Blackboard, there's been lots of questions about, like, can Blackboard handle this load with this many courses and this many faculty and students using Blackboard for the remainder of the semester. Our IT folks have assured us that it can handle the load because we are self-hosted, so all of our servers are handling all of that Blackboard information. However, some of the tools that we use within Blackboard are not hosted here at Angelo State. They are cloud hosted. So Blackboard Collaborate is one of those tools. So that means that you may have to wait 48 plus hours to be able to see those recordings. Do not expect them to be available right away. Certainly not if you record, an entire class lecture. It may take a while. And I really don't know right now, with so many universities going completely online, it might really be hard on their system. So we will kind of see how that works out. And if it turns out that that it's just too much of a lag time, maybe we do need to explore some of the other options like Zoom or WebEx or some of those other things. So, we'll kind of just have to see how that goes. So if you are wanting to teach asynchronously, if you're not worried about doing live sessions like this one today, the best option for screen capture of, like, your presentations, for example, would be to use this the KALTURA screen capture. So if you are not familiar with KALTURA, it is our video hosting service that we have available to faculty. It is integrated with Blackboard. You can get it on the course tools drop down within Blackboard. I believe it's called Media Gallery there, though, so don't look for the name KALTURA because you won't find it. And it offers some very basic recording options and maybe a few little editing tools, but really not very much. You can't do a whole lot of editing with this tool. But like I said, right now we're kind of more just trying to get as much as we can of your courses online, and we're not so much, worried too much about putting out perfect videos. So here's a screenshot of what the My Media page looks like, within Blackboard. And so if you were going to create a new recording, you'd go right over there where it says Add New, and click on that, and you'd get a drop down to do the screen capture option. So that's how that works. So when you are using that tool, you are defining the area of your screen that you want to capture. So it works really well if you're wanting to record PowerPoint presentations, or if you have other content that stays within a designated area. But like I said, no editing capabilities. In this case, though, I think that's kind of your best friend. You're not going to get bogged down in editing things. You're just going to capture video and post it. So another option I wanted to bring up, too, is this KALTURA Express Capture. And that one is not found in Blackboard right now, but our IT folks are working hard to get that installed, hopefully by the end of this week. So you will see that as another option in that Add New dropdown. And what this one does is it allows you to record yourself, like with a webcam, and it goes straight into KALTURA. So that may take out a few extra steps for some of you that have previously recorded yourselves from a webcam. So again, though, no editing. You're just going to go with it. Okay, so I'm going to move on briefly to content organization. I'm sorry. It looks like, Dr. Kitch, did you have a question?
Yeah, on the KALTURA stuff, can we download the video file and edit it in other software?
That's a good question. I think we can, but you need my help to do it. So we only have a limited number of admin accounts, and so I have it for our college. So if you want to do that, we can, but it's not an easy.
Yeah, that's all I needed to know. Thanks.
Okay. All right, so I'm briefly going to talk about content organization. So most of you, I'm sure, know how to, create a content area in your class and to start adding content that way. So one of the things I'm going to recommend, because it'd be so easy right now for you just to start throwing content up there and just adding things to your menu, to the navigation menu, right? Every new piece of content gets added up there, but that really gets pretty overwhelming for our students. It's a lot for them to process, and it makes it difficult to navigate the course. So I would recommend, if you can, to create a landing page that has folders on it. And so those folders, I did a little screenshot here so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. It just kind of helps keep your navigation clean. Like maybe you have one spot in your navigation that says course content, and you're putting all of your content on a landing page there with folders. It'll just kind of help keep things neat and organized for students at a time that's kind of unpredictable, right? So another thing when it comes to content organization that I wanted to mention was the learning modules. So these are really ideal if you're doing sequential learning, right? So if you are starting with like you have a specific order that you want students to go through your content, especially if you're doing scaffolding things and you're building, starting with an easier concept and adding things onto it. An example that I used here is, if you have a learning module that includes video, maybe you've got a little bit of written content in there, maybe a PowerPoint too and a PDF. This is a great way to kind of group all of those items together and present them to students as one cohesive package. So here's a screenshot of that so you can see what I'm talking about here. So in this screenshot, you can tell that we're on page 4 of 9. And this one is showing you there's a YouTube video that's been embedded right here, and you can see where we're at over here on this index. You can see all the content that is included in this learning module. And so it's just a nice way to move students through the content and help them see kind of where they're at within the learning module. So that's why I like those. So those are, you can find learning modules and the drop down in Blackboard. If we have time at the end, I can show that to you. It's really easy to find that, and then you just kind of start dropping your content in. So the last content organization thing that I wanted to go over with you is reading lists. So if you are, especially right now with things changing rapidly, if you decided that you need to use library resources for more of the content in your course, maybe you want students to be reading journal articles or any other news stories or things like that. The Curriculum Builder tool is a great way for you to do that. This is another tool that you can just add straight from Blackboard. And this is developed with our librarians. So what it does is it allows us to be copyright compliant. So any of the articles or just any of the content that you're pulling in from Curriculum Builder, it's going to pull straight from library databases without making a copy of it, and it will allow our library folks to see how many students are accessing these journals. It helps them kind of figure out what we want to keep subscribing to in the future and what our campus uses. So you can also add outside URLs to the reading list. So I'll show you an example, a screenshot of that. This is a reading list that I did, so you can see how that pulls in specific journal articles. You can see up top I just added a web link right here. And so that's kind of how that ends up looking in your class. So that might be a great way for you to add course content for your students. Okay, so I'm going to move on to class discussions. So I'm sure several of you have heard of the discussion boards online in Blackboard. The recommended tool that we end up using in Blackboard is the Blackboard discussion board. And so this, you obviously may not have built discussion boards into your class prior to now, but some of the advantages of doing that is that it can be kind of a low stakes assessment for students. You can also just do it for participation, and you could add a discussion board that's just there for peer-to-peer support, especially since you may have some students right now that are kind of freaked out about everything that's happening. It might be comforting for them just to be able to connect with other students in the class. So discussion boards are, you can make them 4 points in your grade center, or they can be not part of a grade. So if you do make them a grade, it's going to automatically generate a column in the grade center for you. So here's a screenshot of some discussion boards. You can see at the top, this is the faculty view of it, so you can see you can just create a new form up here at the top. And what that'll do is when your students post to it, if you go over to the needs grading portion of the Grade Center, you'll see each of those individual comments that students have posted, so it makes it a little bit easier for you to grade that later. So I'm going to move on to assignments. So this is probably one of our larger portions of the presentation because there's a couple of different options here depending on what you're doing, what you're teaching. So the first is Blackboard assignments. So these are assignments that students are going to submit straight through Blackboard. One of the advantages of this is that they will receive a submission receipt. Within their view of the Grade Center, they can click over to all of their submissions. They can see exactly what it is that they submitted and what the day and time stamp on it is. So if there are issues, with students saying that, well, I thought I submitted it, this is a great way for you to tell them to go and get that receipt number if they end up needing to enter a support ticket for that. But it's just nice because there's a digital record of these assignments. Anytime you create a Blackboard assignment, it's going to automatically generate a column in the Grade Center. You have the option also to add a grading rubric. So those can really cut down on a lot of time when you're grading, just depending on what you're doing. And I also wanted to clarify what you'll see when you're creating a Blackboard assignment. You'll have the option to post a due date, and then there's also the availability date, right? The end dates for availability. And so you could set the due date for Friday and then set the availability date until like Tuesday of the following week. And so what that would do is students could still submit the work after that due date, but it's going to get flagged in your needs grading section of the Grade Center. It will get flagged as late. So that's the reason why you have both of those options for due date and availability. And this is an example of what a Blackboard assignment would look like. This is what the student sees. So you can see that they can see when the due date is, they see how many points it's worth, and for this particular one there is a grading rubric, so they can click on that and see it. And then right here is where I have my instructional text, and down below is where they would attach their documents. So that's how that one functions. The next assignment type that I want to touch on was the journals. So the journaling tool in Blackboard is great if you want to do, again, some low-stakes reflection type assignments. Again, I'm sure some of these assignments are maybe not things that you had thought to include in your class at the beginning of the semester, but maybe things that, given everything that's changed, they might be a good fit depending on what you're teaching. So journals are also a great way to check for understanding and make sure that your students are grasping the concepts. So it could be really important right now, since we've changed the format of your classes, if you want to just kind of touch base with the students and make sure that they're grasping the content. And these are private spaces, so the students are not all of the other students can see the journals that their peers are writing. So it's a great place where students can ask the instructors questions, and then you would have the option to write them feedback that just goes to those students. I did also want to note there that with the journals, it's only going to create one column in the Grade Center. Even if you are, say, doing a weekly journal requirement for the students, it's just going to be one grade column in the Grade Center. So just something to keep in mind. It's not necessarily a bad thing, just worth noting. And this is what that looks like when you're going to create a journal entry. So it's it's pretty non-threatening, just very open-ended. Students can write whatever they need to, type of thing. So moving on, we have talked a lot this whole year about GRADESCOPE in our college. So if you have not started using GRADESCOPE, now may be the time to at least consider it. So the first bullets up there are the ones that I've used a lot when I've been kind of introducing GRADESCOPE to faculty in our college. The intention of the tool is to help with grading, right? It's going to save time. It's going to help you be more consistent. But For us right now, one of those bonus benefits is that, you know, if you are still wanting your students to do a lot of handwritten work, if they're solving equations or drawing diagrams, things like that, the whole idea with GRADESCOPE is that they're scanning and submitting their work, and then you can easily grade that and give them feedback. So GRADESCOPE I feel is really going to help us out right now. The rest of the semester, it might be a really great option for a lot of faculty. This is a screenshot from one of my demo courses in there with GRADESCOPE, so you kind of get an idea of what that looks like. So all of the grading for GRADESCOPE would be done in the GRADESCOPE platform, and then there's a button at the bottom to sync with Blackboard, and that's going to push all of the grades back over. You will have to manually create grade center columns for anything that's in GRADESCOPE, but GRADESCOPE will have you pair that. It'll have you pair the assignment with the corresponding column in Blackboard, and then it does all the work. It's going to sync with your roster, and it's going to push all the grades over the way you would hope that it would. So I do feel like that one's a good option. If you do need more, if you're new to GRADESCOPE or you want to see some of the training documentation for that, please let me know and I can send any of that to you. I'm pretty sure nearly all of our departments in the college have at least somebody that's that's started using GRADESCOPE, so you may ask around some of your colleagues and kind of get some feedback from them on how it's working and how they intend to use it the rest of the semester. Okay. So now I'm going to move on to group work. I don't know how many of you are familiar with groups in Blackboard, but you have the ability to create groups, and that can be really beneficial for using several other tools. So the Collaborate tool that we're using right now and that we talked about earlier can also be deployed with the groups, the student groups. So if they want to pick a synchronous time to work through a project together, you can make Collaborate available to them. You can also make assignments, group assignments, and so what that means is that when you will receive one submission that goes for 4 or 5 or however many students are in the group, and then when you assign a grade for that submission, it goes to all of those students. Which is nice. You can also do discussion items within the group. So that is really helpful if you have a class with 20 or more students. You would probably want to consider doing the discussion board items in groups. So that way it kind of helps you as the grader keep from getting so fatigued with all of the same discussion threads. You can give each of the groups slightly different topics to talk about, and it's just going to make grading less exhausting for you, I think, if you can divide it up that way, and hopefully more engaging for the students. Another thing that's beneficial is that, if they're working on a project, they can obviously use the groups for sharing documents and other resources. So here's a screenshot, shows you where to go in your course management menu to find those groups right there. And you have several options there. You can do manual groups, you can randomize groups. There's several options. Okay, so I'm going to talk for a little bit about tests and quizzes. Many of you may already be familiar with Blackboard tests and quizzes, but hopefully maybe I can tell you a tip or two that you don't already know. So Blackboard tests are, you can use them for several options. You can do them obviously for exams. You can use them for quizzes. I've seen folks in our college use them for self-tests. You can also do them for assignments or lab worksheets. I think Heather's on the call. She's done it. She's used them for lab worksheets, which I think was a pretty cool use for the Blackboard tests. So she, for example, had an image and then had a short essay answer space on there so that students could kind of analyze the image or the data or whatever was up top and then could write a response for that. So it was a nice way to group that together. Heather, do you want to say anything about that? Nice. To make the lab work partially auto-graded. Yes, that's a nice thing to be able to do. Yes, and then you're just having to grade the short answer parts. I like that. So with the test options, when you are getting in there and building out tests, you have the ability to manipulate and decide how the questions are displayed. You know, if you want them displaying like one at a time, or if you want the students to scroll through the full page with all of your exam questions on it. You can also determine the order of the questions. So if you do it in a set order, or if you want to randomize the questions. You also can set time limits and determine if you want multiple attempts for exams, and the availability. I'm sure you'll probably just do, you know, maybe a day or a couple hours in a day for an exam, so that's important as well. And you also have the option, if you have students with disabilities or students that have other life events going on, you can give some folks either extra time or like a different testing period if necessary. So those are all possible. A few notes on tests, if you haven't used them before. Creating a test is not the same as deploying a test. So when you go and over to the course tools and you find test surveys and pools and you develop your test there, that does not mean that it's visible for your students. You actually have to go into a content area and then select the assessment from there so that it becomes available to students. Once you've created a test, you can't, and students have started taking it, you can't go back and edit it. Like, so if you decide after one or two submissions that, oh man, I really messed up that question, you kind of just have to let everybody struggle with it, or, you know, go back and adjust grades later. And so whenever you make the test available, that is when it automatically generates the column in the Grade Center. Couple comments here also on building tests. Also, I just wanted to back up. You may have also heard of some of our other tools with Respondus that are meant to keep deter cheating in students. So we've got Respondus Lockdown Browser and Respondus Monitor. I'm not going to recommend that anybody really try to get into that right now for a couple of different reasons. One is that, well, first of all, I don't want you struggling with it. If you haven't tried to use those tools before, now is probably not the best time to learn. But also, sometimes those tools require specific technology. So Lockdown Browser doesn't work on Chromebooks, for example. And so Dr. Kitch just did a survey just in the past week or so of engineering students just to get an idea of their technology, and I think he found from that survey that there's quite a large group of students that don't have the most reliable technology right now. I don't know if you want to say anything, comment on that, Dr. Kitch?
We did a survey of all the engineering students, so this is only representative of them, but it's a big survey. We got like 75 responses. So 25% of the students don't have reliable high-speed internet access at their current living arrangements, or where they plan to be living. The 90% have access to either a laptop or a PC. 10% don't, and a small percent are planning to use their smartphones. It's a fairly small percent. It's like 2 or 3%, but they're planning to use their smartphones as a primary method of accessing the internet. Only about half of them had the. I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Is that better?
I can hear you better. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't have my boom mic down. Only about half of them had webcams and mics and stuff like we're wearing right now to participate in a synchronous thing. So the biggest issue, I think, is about 25% of them don't have access to the high-speed internet. So I'm not sure what we do about that, but you need to know that.
Yes, I think that's very, very useful information for us right now, and that would be a reason why I would avoid trying to add things like Respondus Lockdown Browser or Respondus Monitor right now, because our students are not really equipped for that. But I do want to mention Respondus Campus. That is a different thing, and I know it gets confusing because they're all Respondus products. But if you have a lot of tests or quiz questions that you are wanting to build out, if you are sitting down and individually building those out in Blackboard, that can take a really long time. So to save you time, I would recommend that you download Respondus Campus. So to do that, you have access to that in Blackboard on the Technology tab. So I will show you a screenshot. So here's the Technology tab up top, and then this is the module where you see the information about Respondus. So like I said, this is different than Lockdown Browser and Lockdown Monitor. This tool here, Respondus Campus, allows you to take a Word document, you convert it into a rich text or a text file, and then you upload it into Respondus, and it's going to kind of format your test the way Blackboard needs it, and then you have the option to select your course and push it straight over. So this can significantly save you time. I think pretty much everyone that I've shown this to is like, oh, wow, that's so much faster than what I was doing before. So do keep that in mind, but you do have to have a PC to use that. It won't work from a Mac. So moving on, I want to briefly talk about sign-up sheets. I know several folks will do classroom activities. Oh, and Kristen says there's a quick guide to format your questions. Yes, there's. I'm planning to follow up after the webinar with several resources for folks, and I do have some quick guides on how to format your content for Respondus Campus. It's pretty critical that you have that information also. Can you share created tests and quizzes? Yes, so after you create a test or a quiz, Connie's question was, can you share tests and quizzes with your colleagues? And you can. I would share them after you have moved them from Respondus Campus into your Blackboard course. At that point in time, it would be really easy to copy it over into your colleague's class or download it and then share it with them that way. I know a lot of our geosciences folks have been doing that this spring, so I think they've had a pretty easy experience with that. I'm not sure. Yes, Heather says totally easy, so that would be a great way to share that type of those tests. So briefly moving on to sign-up sheets. So I know a lot of folks will have assignments or projects where maybe you give students options like, hey, there's 5 different categories here. You all need to sign up for one of these things to work on this project. And so the best way to do that within Blackboard is to use a tool called a wiki. So it works very similar to a Google Doc. All the students can access and edit it. If you do have some students, that said, oh, so-and-so went in and changed, what I wrote, you can go back and look at the history on that page. So you do have that option. But it's just a nice way to get everyone to collaborate. I've also heard of faculty using them for like study guides. If you want students to identify, what they think should be on the exam or, any types of things like that. The wiki can be a good option. Here's an example of what this looks like in a course. So the student would just click on, the text here and then share their sign up. So that was a quick dive into wikis. Now I'll move on to communicating with students. First thing we're going to talk about is emailing. So I just included a screenshot here of when you go to send an email. One thing to keep in mind if you are looking for the email tool in Blackboard and you open the Course Tools menu, it's not under E for email. It's actually under S with Send Email. I don't know. It's confusing. But look for it under Send Email. And you'll see that you have several options here. You can send to, all of the students in the class. If you have student graders, you can send just to them. So you can kind of choose which group you want to mail to. But it's not coming from your email client. I did have folks this morning tell me that they are pretty much always copied on their own emails that they send. So if that's the case, that's great. Then you don't have to worry about copying yourself on it. We did also install another tool called Quickly with a W there. In Blackboard, it's probably been about 2 years now, but what that tool does is it allows you to send a single email to multiple courses. So if you are interested in that, that'll be another resource I share. I've got I think a short video or something that walks you through how to set up Quickly. So if you think that's something that would be useful to you to be able to email to all of your classes, we do have an option for that too. So another super popular thing to communicate with students is course announcements. I usually always recommend that you have your entry page for the course start on the announcements page. That way students will see anything that's new up at the top. So you can select to send an email of your announcements. There's not a guarantee that the students will receive it because students can decide, they can determine for themselves what level of notifications they want. And in case no one has talked to you about it, Blackboard sends a lot of notifications all the time by default. It can really fatigue a lot of our users. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of our students kind of turned off their email notifications from Blackboard. And so that's another reason why I usually always recommend that you start the course on the announcements page. That way, if they're not checking their email or they've turned off those notifications, they will still see whatever new message you have right there when they enter the class. I did also want to note, though, that if you are attaching video or image links into your announcements, to be a little bit cautious about that, because those types of links don't appear on the mobile app. And I know a lot of our students heavily use the Blackboard mobile app, and so sometimes faculty can come across as kind of, I want to say like flaky or not with it, because they'll be like, hey, check out this video I just posted. And the students will look at it and be like, Dr. So-and-so forgot to post a video for this. And you didn't, it's just that it's not showing up in the announcement in the mobile app. So, a better way to phrase that might be to post your announcement and say, please log in to view the latest video that I just posted, or something like that. Just wanted to point that out. So we also have a lot of folks that'll use Collaborate for their office hours. So this might be a good option for you for the rest of the semester. You can also, if you're still doing advising, Collaborate is a good tool for advising. And you can also do meetings by appointment with students. So it's really easy. I know a lot of you maybe will want more in-depth training on Collaborate. And I'm not sure. Kristen actually put together a great video. Kristen Stanley is on our training session right now, and she has shared with us about a 10-minute video that she put together on how to use Collaborate. And so we'll share that with you all as well, and some of the resources afterward, because that should help you navigate. I've heard a lot of people say that Collaborate is not as intuitive for them as some of the other tools, but since it is integrated into Blackboard, I do feel like it's going to be the easiest choice for us this spring. So anyhow, so lastly, I just wanted to take a moment to point out some resources for you on attendance. I know a lot of folks take attendance in their classes and probably feel like that's going to be a challenge now. And so one way for you to kind of address that is to go to the performance dashboard. So under your course management toolbar, if you open evaluation, and the number 2 here is this performance dashboard. And so you can actually run several reports from this area. You'll see this other one called course reports. But if you're specifically looking at attendance, this is a quick, easy way to do that. So here's a screenshot from one of my demo courses. You have this days since last course access. And so if you're wanting students to log in every day, it should say 0 or 1 or, whatever you've deemed acceptable for that. So anyway, that's where we're at with that. That's my best solution, I guess, for addressing attendance right now. So I know I kind of just shot through this really fast, but if there are specific tools or things you saw in here that you think kind of piqued your interest and you would like to have more training on them, please let me know, and I can schedule something. We'll do like another Collaborate type of session like this and get you guys the information you need. Lastly, this is desperate times. I know that. I don't want you to feel cut off. So this is my cell phone number, and you can call me, you can text me. I know I'm not at my desk a lot right now because I'm kind of running all over the place. So if you need to reach me, feel free to call or text me. If you call me after 10 p.m., I probably won't answer until the next day, but it won't bother me. So there you go. And I'll open it up for questions now. All right, and you guys can just like chime in and turn on your microphone too if you want.
How are you going to distribute that Collaborate video?
This one?
The one? No, the one that you said Kristen prepared.
Oh, that Kristen did. It's a URL. It's a YouTube video, so I'll just send everybody the link to that one.
I got a bunch of faculty that need to see that.
Okay. We'll get that this afternoon.
Thanks.
Okay, so good question from Liz on trainings on setting up modules. I don't have that, but I can certainly put some stuff together on that. I think, yeah, because there's a couple different, that's a good one. That's a good idea. I can do that. Sure. Okay, input for remote exams. So do you mean, like, do I have any, like, any advice on how to run those? Is that what you mean, Gus?
I mean that one of my courses is based on like traditional exams, and I would like to keep the format but remotely. So if I prepare the exam and I send them, and to not cheating or not having other resources for solving the problems, and then scanning them and submitting, something like that.
Okay. Well, I know with you guys being engineering, we did hear that since you guys are working toward accreditation, if they need to meet on campus for that, that's the only exception we can make. So, so I'm not sure, but you may want to see if maybe we can have those students come and test on campus.
No, Gina, that's not the issue. We're talking about something like Respondus lockdown browser or other ways they can take traditional exams remotely.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so if we need to, we can certainly use, it would be Respondus Lockdown Monitor would allow you to do a video of those. And I think, so Kristen Stanley is on the call, and she's from Archer College, and she actually has a lot of experience in working with the nursing faculty on using Respondus Monitor and Respondus Lockdown Browser. Kristen, do you want to chime in at all?
Thank you. And so as long as the computer labs or the MCS lab is open, which it may shut down soon because everything's changing right by the hour. But the MCS, since our students are face-to-face, they can still come in and take tests, and they can check out a webcam. And the MCS labs are loaded with the latest version of Lockdown Browser, and they can take a test with Monitor. And then we do have the testing labs, but I mean, that may change quickly. And in the Archer College, we had a policy where all testing had to be done using Monitor, but we are kind of becoming more lenient because, you know, students weren't required to have the technology at the beginning of the semester with these online courses, but with PT and nursing, they're still going to have to use Monitor, and they're familiar with it. We have some resources and testing and announcements that you need to send out to your students. We're also asking faculty to think if they can still achieve the same objective and doing some sort of project-based assessment or an assignment that would achieve the same objective that a test would. But we are starting to become a little bit more lenient on using those products because, you know, we foresee issues, especially because students really need to have access to high-speed internet. They need to have an Ethernet cable, and they need to have a webcam to take these tests using Monitor.
Hey, Jana and Kristen, I think what would be helpful to have something, so like, got getting frustrated here, but how to explain this. The faculty need to know how to do assessments. Like we have 25% of our students aren't coming back to campus, so MCS 100 means nothing. So the faculty don't know the difference between doing a Blackboard test, using lockdown browser, and I think some overview of the assessment tools that are available would be helpful, because I would say, Kristen, I thank you very much for that. 50% of what you said was jargon that most people won't understand if they haven't been using those tools. So they just need some help in understanding how to, how to do tests in this environment. I mean, that you can tell them when they're on their own and they got to handwrite it and they scan it and they have X time to do it, and it's completely on their own recognizance to do it properly, and they scan them and they turn them into the grader. Now suddenly my brain went dead. Or you can do the lockdown browser. That's a different thing. You can do a test on Blackboard. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things you can do, but like when you say test on Blackboard, that it's not a test. It's it's an interface that does this thing, and so the same word used in different contexts means something else. Like I do all kinds of quizzes on Blackboard. What's the difference on a Blackboard between a test and a survey? The only difference between a test and a survey is that survey doesn't associate the user's ID number with the data, but they're the same damn thing. So somebody needs to help faculty understand, I guess, one more level of these assessment tools, so they got some idea of what it is. We understand that we could change to a project or something like that, but that's not the question.
Okay. Okay, well, I wrote that down as another action item to see if we can come up with some better differentiation among some of those options. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I think it's just the next level into that.
Okay.
It's the 30 minutes on assessment tools or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know. Blackboard's really, Blackboard's freaking hard to understand. It's really, really difficult to understand. And what they call things like course module, you say course module, I have no idea what that means.
Gotcha. Like the learning module. That's a good, hold on. I think I could probably show you all right now. Let me see.
Hey, Jana,
Yes.
you can use the Earth Science course that I have up. That has lots of modules in it.
Okay, hold on. No, who is, I can't tell
That's
who's
Heather.
talking right now.
That's Heather.
Heather. Oh, okay. Well, I can show you. I appreciate that. I think I'm gonna just I can do a content area, so I can show people how to find it really quick since I'm in this one. And my plan right now, so I've created this template for the college that is this teaching remotely demo. My plan is to add all of you in here as faculty or as instructors, and then I'll have all of the kind of instructions for all these different tools that you'll need to share with your students. I'll put them in here so you can kind of course copy from here. So when I talk about a learning module, it's right here. So under build content, you'd go learning module, you'll create a name for it, and you can do a description for it. So that's the icon that designates the learning module, and then you're just going to start building it like you would any of your regular content items or files or whatever else you're doing. So it's pretty easy, but that's where you would find it, is right under here. For course link, what was I also going to point out? So under the assessments, you've got your tests, you've got the assignments, that's where you'll find those items. The tools over here, I believe this is where you find GRADESCOPE. I'll just show you that really quick. And like I said, we can follow up with support documents on a lot of these things, but that hopefully gives you an idea on that.
You know, like for instance, tests are really freaking complicated because when you create a test, it doesn't necessarily deploy it. And then you create a test and you fill in the front matter on the test, but then when you deploy it, you fill in the front matter again. And, you know, there's all these details to these things that are just really confusing. And so I'll tell you to the faculty that the only way you're going to learn this stuff is by doing it. Find somebody in your department or somebody else who's done it once, because they'll save you hours of getting lost in some place and wanting to throw your computer through the window. Because it's just none of it in Blackboard is simple, nothing. And it all has these nuances that'll screw you up, and you'll think you have this thing all set up, and then you see it and it's all ready to go, and then your students can't see it because you forgot to click make it available. And so the only way to do this is to just jump in with both feet, be patient, and ask for help. I don't think you can understand a single one of these tools without doing it.
Right. I agree with you, and I think that's why, to me, a lot of the presentation today is just meant to help you understand what's available to you. But yes, that's why it's not really tool training, but it kind of shows you where to go to kind of get started and kind of test around with things and see what's a good fit for you. And I agree, Blackboard is not very easy or intuitive in a lot of ways, but that's the tool we have right now, so we're going to make it work.
Yeah, that wasn't a complaint. That was the session was great. It was a great introduction of stuff. The reason you're getting questions is people say, "Oh, I could use that. What is it really?" So that's good. It was more of a statement of fact.
Yes, and please follow up with more. If you think of other questions later, other things you want to explore, other training, anything like that, please just shoot me an email, text me, whatever, and we'll see what we can do. Tomorrow, we're doing another session that's just on video. So different options for recording videos. That seems to be a really huge area of interest with a lot of faculty in our college. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow. So if you haven't signed up for that one, feel free to do that. And then Thursday, we're talking about challenging courses. So if you have other courses or content that you think is going to be very difficult to deliver online, I'm not guaranteeing that we'll have good answers for you, but we can at least start a discussion, and I'm going to try to see if we can get some of our IT folks to join that conversation in case there's any technology that can help with what you're needing to do. So anyway, just a example of what we'll be doing with the rest of the week, but we can certainly do more training next week and in the weeks to follow. So anyway, thank you all for coming. I appreciate your time, and I hope this has been useful. So thanks.
Hey, Jane, I have one question for you that may not be of interest to everybody, but so you set this Collaborate up to everybody through an individual announcement, an individual guest thing. We're trying to figure out, since we want to move to Collaborate, how to do these common non-course collaboration things. Should I request for e-learning to create a Blackboard course for us as a general one for the faculty to use for us to communicate between each other, and then we're talking for our SI instructors and tutors whether we're trying to decide whether we open a Collaborate within each class, but a tutor teaches a bunch of classes and some student might come in and want help in 2 or 3 classes during a tutoring session, and so should we have a separate one for that? And I'm trying to understand that, so I need to talk to you sometime about.
Okay, and I know that you guys have an engineering org in Blackboard, and so that might be a great place for you to add Collaborate, as in that engineering org. And so that would be a good place for the student tutors. And it looks like Kristen may have some comments on that too, right? It looks like you're raising your hand, Kristen.
You answered what I was going to, or you said what I was going to say. Dr. Kitch, that's what we're doing. We're using the orgs where for each department where all faculty are in one place and they just add the Collaborate link. It's a tool link and from the top, which my video shows you how to do. And that's how all faculty are communicating in one place and they're sharing all their resources all in one place for each department. So when you say org, I don't know what that means.
Oh, so you guys have an engineering org, so it's not listed with your classes. It's like in a separate little module in there, but all of your students have been enrolled in that one. It pulls by the course code and banner, I believe. So if you find a list of your organizations in Blackboard, you should see your engineering community.
Hey, Jana, hold on a sec. Bill,
Yes.
you know where you go to look for your training when you do Blackboard trainings? The same place you go to look for all of those Blackboard trainings that we've had to do, like the Title IX trainings and all those things. You'll have one there that'll be listed under that section heading. That's where the orgs are.
Well, I don't know what you guys are talking about.
So if you go to Blackboard,
so I'm in. Hold on, I'm enrolled in it. I can show you.
Sexual harassment training.
Let me see. Oh, but I'm not sharing my screen. Hold on. Let me share it. Okay. So in engineering, you guys have down here. Sorry, your organizations. So right here you have this engineering community. Can you see that?
I know what that is. I didn't. You call it the engineering org. I had no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's the engineering community. It's listed as an org. That would be a great place for you to add collaborate, and then you can do different sessions. And Kristen, you know more about can you schedule private sessions in Collaborate?
Yes, you can send out a link to a session that only that one person would have. You can schedule, you're supposed to be able to lock the room, but when we were testing it, we could still find ways to get into the room. And if you were having a private meeting with a student, I mean, you would see if someone else came in, but you should be able to lock your course room if you just wanted to meet with one student once y'all get in, and you would give them access to that room.
So I'm understanding this better, but Jana, who has the ability to edit this? Because I can't add anything to this.
Make sure.
I think Dr. Apranti is the leader. For your engineering org, I believe it's Dr. Apranti, but I believe all of you should be leaders in it. I'm going to check for you.
I mean, I can't add a tool.
Make sure edit mode is on. If you're a leader, you should be able to turn on edit mode on the top right.
Oh, maybe that's all it was. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's another thing I hate about Blackboard.
Well, I'm glad that solved it, though. That's good.
Okay, that helps a lot. I mean, this is another example of this language thing. You say engineering org, I had no idea what you're talking about. You say, oh, the engineering community, I know what that is. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, that's an interesting idea. So we could definitely put one in there, and then I'm not sure how much our students and faculty are used to coming here, honestly, but maybe they're going to figure it out now.
Well, and if you're just sending people a straight link for Collaborate, they don't even know you're in that class. Like I understand. Sent you guys the guest link. So.
Yeah. I understand that part, but so I want to start one. Where do I do it? That's what I was asking, or but I can see setting that up in there. I think we could probably figure that out. I'm looking forward to looking at Kristen's training video.
Yes, I will send that out shortly. And Kristen's college has also done quite a bit with discussion boards too. So if you're looking at students being able to help other students with tutoring or SI, her college does a lot of I have a question discussion boards. So they're not obviously for a grade or anything, but so different folks can subscribe to those message boards. So you'll get an email alert when someone posts a question. So that might be another way to get students supporting students, or for faculty to be able to jump in and answer questions too.
Hey, Kristen, what do you guys call your Collaborate? I mean, you don't call it Collaborate, Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. What do you call it that everybody understands what the hell the thing is?
Collaborate online chat, connect, and then I think Jana calls it Collaborate. and then you choose the Blackboard Ultra Collaborate tool.
Yeah, no, the tool I know. I'm trying to think of a name that, like if I saw Collaborate, I have no idea what that means. If I put online chat, I'm not sure that does it either. So.
And then whatever you decide to name it, then just let your students know that's where to go.
Yeah. Now, and what access do the faculty have to this that the students won't in this? Because they're all, I don't know what you call them, owners or instructors or versus students. I mean, can students create so what access would I have to give my tutors and SI instructors on this so that?
Oh, so you'd probably want them to be moderators, I think.
And can we do that, or do you have to do that?
No, you can do it. It's from the setting. I think when you watch Kristen's video, that will kind of answer some of those.
How come when I slide this thing around, it won't move it? Never mind.
Okay, well, I think we're already 6 minutes over. So I will end our recording, our session now. But hopefully you guys can tune in later in the week.